My name is Tom. I'm a board member here. So before we introduce Judith, I just want to say welcome to the Southwest Harbor Public Library. Hope everybody's having a good summer. The library's been super busy this summer, so I hope some of you have gone to some of our events, and we still have more things coming up. We have a geology program, I think, next week, and after that we also have Judy Taylor, the painter, and that's also... The geology is in 2 weeks? Okay, thank you. And if you go to the front desk, you'll see one of these cards that are something you can pick up. And then we also have the big art auction that's going on through, I think, till the end of August. Not right to the end, but do you know the date?
August 27th.
Okay.
Wednesday, 5
And there's beautiful work. You should go upstairs and downstairs. I have a piece in the show. You might want to buy it. It's not for me, for the library.
One of them's already sold.
And this little one over here is already sold, so sorry, but maybe I'll bring another one. But please, I know you're all patrons of the library, so just please come and look at the work and look online too. And bid, and like I say, it's not necessarily what the artist asked for the work, it's all for the library, so it's all for good cause. I think that covers any of that, but so now about today's presentation. I have known Judy for many, many years. Initially, she had invited the children that I taught at Summer Festival of the Arts to come onto her property and draw and paint and write poetry, and it was just a beautiful experience over many, many years. I've also been there on my own to do my own work, and I just think Judy's a lovely person. I'm really glad she's doing this presentation. As you know, Judy's been involved in a great variety of academic and people-oriented projects, endeavors. She founded Humanity in Action in 1997 and served as its executive director for 20 years, over 20 years, leading many of its international educational programs. If you don't know about it, it's a good thing to look up and find out more about. She has received her master's degree and PhD in history from Columbia and has written several books and articles about European and American history, including works on Maine and Mt. Desert Island. I'm particularly interested in this day because I love the Morgan Library. Has anybody been to the Morgan Library here? It's just a treasure in New York. It's a nice small museum. They always have great shows, a great variety of shows. It's just a really comfortable place to go. And I read the book about the librarian, and I'm interested to hear more. So let's welcome Judith Goldstein.
Well, I'm so glad you're all here. Can you hear me? Yes. Good. Okay. So first of all, I want to thank Parrish and Kate and Melissa for organizing this talk, and for, I guess, asking me to come back again. So I'm not talking about Denmark this year. Nothing to do with Denmark. So it's all native. So I'd like to share with you some thoughts about two publications, one which is, I think, circulating, and which these publications wax lyrical about literature, while simultaneously revealing complexities about America through art and literature in the late 19th and the early to mid 20th century. One is a publication featuring American literary posters, and it's just a gorgeous book that's circulating. And the second one is the Morgan Library and Museum's catalog of its recent exhibition honoring Belle de Costa Greene, its first librarian and its long-term executive director. The publications about women, race, and class reveal tensions within late 19th century into the mid-20th century society. So I want to start with the literary posters, which is like enjoying the best dessert. I mean, just say it's a chocolate tortless schlag, or it's one of Amy Poe's cakes or pies with ice cream, the best. This is before getting down to business with the main meal. The posters are from the collection of Leonard Lauder, one of America's great art collectors, who was fascinated by art starting in the late 19th century. Art of the highest quality by Picasso and Braque and Leger and Gris and Klimt and Matisse, and including living artists, and Diebenkorn and living artists like Agnes Martin. He died a few years ago. He died a few months ago. He died a few weeks ago. Yeah. Yes. Recently. And a great loss. Parts of the poster collection are revealed in the stunning book which is circulating, which is called The Art of Literary Poster, which is now part of Southwest Harbor's library. So Lauder had an almost ravenous eye for beautiful art, which he found in many different forms and places. Popular images, including historic postcards, thousands of them, which are now part of the Boston Museum of Art, and posters, particularly the literary posters from the late 19th century, which I believe, because I didn't have the book, because I gave it to the library, so I believe they're in the Met. I hope they're in the Met. He also had an eye, and maybe more accurately stated, an obsession with striking and beautiful images that document culture and literature. Part of the obsession was the quest or hunger to find the works through the market of collectors at the highest level, and then the various markets, especially flea markets, where discoveries and acquisitions can be made. Maine, as you know, is rich in this trade, engaging leagues of collectors. So Lauder and his first wife, Evelyn, used to stalk the weekend flea markets, looking for the raw materials of possessions and collections. These stalkers are probably a breed apart, maybe even identified in medical journals by their compulsions to seek and to possess. If I'm insulting any of you, I mean it. So Leonard Lauder and his wife went blazing into the world of American history and American literary posters, and that development of these posters developed in a burst of enthusiasm for reading books and literary magazines in the 1880s and the 1890s, or possibly more accurately for publishers to sell them. The artwork of the poster is really delicious. Let me share some images. What they show are mostly prosperous, always white, women of leisure, a smaller number of men, but they were not the prime object of advertising, the advertising effort. They're middle to upper class, entertaining themselves with the pursuit of reading. Not regal, but still showing off many signs of high status. A few notches down from the social scale, on the social scale, not the upper class grandees of Bar Harbor or Newport. These poster women appear with fashionable clothing, bicycles, flowers, and books, on vacation, at the theater, in front of their homes, on the tram. There are few grand houses on display, no grandiose European-like gardens, jewelry, or stately clothing, such as we tend to think about Bar Harbor. So let me show some of these images, and they're just gorgeous. They heavily female, very artistic, Art Nouveau. Oh, lights? Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Oh, wow, okay. So we'll go through a number of the images that the book is full of the images, but these are just a few of them that I took out to show you. So again, certain characteristics, very artistic, very sort of imaginary, very Japanese, very Art Nouveau, and filled with wonderful detail and style. So we can run through. So and they're not all women. I mean, this is clear. But they're beautiful. And again, it's for Charles Scribner and Sons. Okay, next, if we could. So there we begin to see the flowers. But that's important for the women. And beautiful dresses, and of course, the book. And this cut is a very Japanese detail, which was picked up. Okay. This just shows a decorative cover of the Century magazine. The Marriage of Napoleon, obviously of great interest. And next, this has a lot of the goodies in it. I mean, these Japanese lanterns, and of course she's reading the book, and the table, and light colored green. But keep this one in mind when we show the picture of Belle de Costa Greene. So this is Judy. It's quite daring, and the rose, the book, and the next one would be the next one. Yeah, the bicycle. Has to be a bicycle to show that women could go out and that they could wear clothing that they could maneuver on the bikes as opposed to the confining dresses that they were wearing earlier. So this is the modern woman, and looking quite handsome. And the next one. So this is, I think, quite beautiful. It's a Japanese drawing. It's just sumptuous. So they okay, and finally a horse, of course, and then a man. A little bit snotty, I would say, just a bit, but, or supercilious, or, you know, I mean, the nose is not as pointy as the horse's, but it's pretty close. Pretty close. He looks quite impressive. They're off to dinner or something like that. Oh no, they're the horse. They can't go to dinner. I don't know. Okay, but she has gloves, so something is happening. Okay. Your next one.
Their tab sheet.
So this is an advertisement for the bicycle, I think. Yes, for the bicycle. And she's pretty stylish. I think her skirt is great. It's very Japanese. It's just these light lines. It's just beautiful. And always a hat, I guess. Next one. And then, yeah. This is a little scary. I mean, I don't think the women are, but this one is. The way the face is cut, it's quite daring. And yeah, I think there may be one more, or this is it. It was just a boat. We have to have a boat for Bar Harbor, and a yacht. Sorry, a boat. And then a yacht. Yeah. And it's, again, it's just so artistic. It's just so beautiful with the formation and all of this decorative stuff. So it's really good. And one can, you know, understand why.
There's one more.
One more. Smith College. Fancy. But I love the way they're all, you get a few hands, but it's all the dresses and just the feet. It's very, what? It's very nice. We'll put it that way. So these images are of handsome youngish women, or white women, active, engaged, and confident women. And the wealth and leisure is taken for granted. The women reveal, I mean, the images reveal women of the progressive period showing entitlement and status in pursuit of literature. The artwork is seductive and beautiful, decorative in the best ways, and often reflective of modern artistic art, the Art Nouveau and the Japanese art. The images contain few mysteries or shocking content. They were aspirational for women illustrating the adventure of reading and ambition to know more with an underlying message of enjoying their social status, but rarely any consideration of the professional worlds from which they were barred. They could break barriers and become, women could, and become artists or gardeners or landscape architects, but rarely professionals, but only in non-academic settings. But they could read. So the proliferation of these wonderful images for advertising books and journals, and even for collecting, I guess are comparable to TikTok and other social media today. The genre lasted for about 2 decades and then came to a halt. The products were viewed as feminine. Indeed, many of the artists were women who found an outlet for their artistic talents. And not surprisingly, many men in the field didn't like the competition for women. And as often the case with selling goods, advertisers, and particularly book publishers lost confidence in the trending efficacy of the posters. So the commercial market of publishing gave in to the power of male dominance and control in late 19th century and early 20th century American culture. And then this extraordinary flowering of posters was pretty much over. I mean, there were posters for cabarets and for musicals and all the rest, but these were, I think, quite special, and that's why Lauder wanted them. But now on to the real thing. Not just made up of fanciful images to sell the literary product. The second publication of note is the catalog for the exhibit Belle de Costa Greene, which presents a very, very different story. It documents the deep and legitimate pursuit of literary excellence, collecting on a monumental scale, and the unparalleled status that Greene achieved. In this story, there is a different kind of confidence and aspiration from the poster images of the privileged but not high-achieving literary New England female reader. Greene's singular story portrays incomparable excellence, aspiration, accomplishments in the refined, rarefied, and expensive world of book and manuscript collecting. Greene's history is also one of duplicity and at least one deeply tragic event. Greene hardly needed any cultural support or advertising to advance her position or career. Far from it. She was in a class of her own as a woman in reading, discovering, and collecting great works of literature and art on behalf of her patrons, J.P. Morgan and his son J.P. Morgan Jr., and their incomparable Morgan Library and Museum. Serving as the library museum's first librarian and first director, she was respected for her erudition, for her discernment, her savvy, and wit. She was an institutional collector who oversaw the growth of the collections over a 50-year period. Greene's history rested in part on joining a unique, dazzling, and totally upper-class, rich, white world that she made herself part of. But it was built on the foundations of subterfuge. She was black, a black woman. Both parents were black, and she passed as white. So let's show 3 images of her. So there she is, and there she could be in the poster. I mean, she's exactly the image of what the poster is conveying. Then, and it's quite lovely. And she was very beautiful. So the next image is when this is Belle de Costa Greene. And she's at one of the seminaries. I don't know, she's went to Amherst for library summer and I went to a seminary and then to Princeton. But she has the same very officious looking, is that the right word? And serious And she's in the company of people who can expect to succeed, which is something that at this point only her imagination and ambition could give her. She was, and then there's another picture of her. You see how handsome she is, and beautifully dressed, very, very stylish and special. And then another picture, and they're in an exotic. I think that's a peacock hat on her head, quite different from those of the women in the advertisements or the posters, but surrounded by books and richness, and she was exotic. She was really extraordinary. So she was erudite, she was witty, she was dynamic, and she was beautiful. And she could easily have served as a model for the poster with the message that reading was important to beautiful white people. But in the literary art fields, she was the real thing, an exception in the male world of collectors, as well as an imposter in segregated America. In the American culture of racial separation, of superior and inferior, of pure blood and outcast, she violated the 1% blood rule. 1% black blood meant black, and outcast and irrefutably not white. She passed herself and passed as the real thing. If she had not disguised herself as of Spanish-Portuguese origin, she would have been totally barred from educational advancement, employment, stature, wealth, and power in the art world of collectors. 1% black blood meant total exclusion. The Morgan exhibition documents her extraordinary history, both personal and professional. She was born in 1883 to two black parents who were part of the middle-class black life in D.C. Her father was Richard Theodore Greener. Her mother was Genevieve Ida Fleet, whose family was active in the abolitionist movement. Richard, her father, was the first black man who graduated from Harvard in 1870, the first black professor at the University of South Carolina during Reconstruction, and dean of the Howard Law School. He became a U.S. diplomat and served in Russia for many, many years. After the divorce between Mr. and Mrs. Belle lived with her mother and family, her mother's family, and separately from her father. She listed him as dead on her passports a decade before he died. So the separation for her was complete. She started to work in the 1890s at Columbia University, was recognized by a patron who paid for her to study at Northfield Seminary for Young Ladies, maybe where that picture was taken, and she attended a summer library program at Amherst, and maybe the picture was there, but I think it was the seminary. It looks like a seminary. It doesn't look like Amherst, I guess. And then she went, I don't know what Amherst looked like in those years, but I'm making but she went on to work at Princeton on rare books and manuscripts. And at Princeton, she impressed Eunice Spencer Morgan II, who referred her to his uncle, J.P. Morgan, and who came up to Mount Desert. And starting in 1895 as the first librarian for his growing collection, she became a confidant and proxy for J.P. Morgan and J.P. Morgan Jr. in the development and expansion of the Great Library and the museum. She became the first director of the library in 1924. She retired in 1948 after serving as director for 25 years and 20 years before that as librarian. She turned the institution from a private collection to a public one, expanded its brilliant collections and catalogs in manuscripts and prints and drawings, bookbindings and authors' manuscripts, enabled scholars and collectors to use the collection and encourage public interest in its work through exhibitions, lectures, and publications. She was extraordinary. She was also beautiful, spirited, witty, ambitious, bold, adventurous, and fun-loving. New York and Europe were her territories for acquisitions and adventures in the world of art and art collecting. Music, especially opera and theater, and romance. I quote Wikipedia on this. Asked if she was Morgan's mistress, Greene replied, "We tried." Now I find that intriguing. But what does happen? How did she try? They tried. Anyway, there was no equivocation about another affair, the one starting in 1909, with the great American-born art historian and dealer Bernard Berenson, and that lasted for many, many years. She was eloquent and sardonic and revelatory. A letter to Alfred Stieglitz about his gallery, 291, is really delicious. The gallery was celebrating its achievement in representing some of the emerging great American artists of the 20th century, Marston Hartley and John Marin and George O'Keeffe and Steichen. So she wrote to him in this congratulatory way, "I wish that I were able to repay you for the countless times you have so lavishly poured courage into my soul, enthusiasm into my living, and clarity into my thinking." I wish I could steal this language. It's wonderful. I wish I could, she said, I wish I could convey this to you. For the countless times I have come to you a hopeless, incoherent mass, my courage like so much wet tissue paper, my mind fringed by the seeming uselessness of things, and left you an optimist, determined, and directed endeavor. She calls herself an endeavor. I think, I've never heard the word used that way, but I think we could all go around and say, we are endeavors. That's what you thought. So she goes on to say, I owe you much, Stieglitz, perhaps more than do your satellites. For they, and she's referring to the artists as the satellites, at least they have seen the light. They know, italicized, that Rembrandt, Leonardo, Raffaello, Velasquez, and the other old fogies are weak, flabby, and hopelessly defunct. That's pretty good. Then, they know, in italics, this gets better, that the Metropolitan Museum is but a morgue, and as such should be related to its proper place underground. But I, O Stieglitz, am still groping in darkness. My eyes are still unopened, and when you are not looking, I creep back to that same morgue and find there, as I have at 291, the glory you radiate. It's so sweet. It's really wonderful. Okay, now, in the publication, The First Quarter Century of the Pierpont Morgan Library, published in 1949, Lawrence C. Roth extolled her work. Quote, "Never has there been a librarian so little like the conventional librarian of fiction, gliding rubber-heeled with finger to lips among tables and files and shelves. Miss Greene's work was carried on heartily, noisily, in a whirl of books and papers, disturbing to no one who could not perceive the cosmic orderliness of purpose which underlay the surface confusion. Her humor is not something put on for its entertainment value. It is an attitude towards life. And to her, life is drama. In her role, she moves from scene to scene, employing the several devices of overstatement, understatement, irony, innuendo, and allusion. It is indeed, and it's, quote, he's quoting somebody else, a humor one would travel far to hear, a tonic and clarifying agency with realism and shrewd understanding of her fellows as an animating force." And that's from that exhibition catalog in 1949. I would suggest that there are so many ironies and possible double meanings in this description of Greene that deepen poignancy to her life and our understanding of it. He wrote that her humor conveyed her attitude towards life, and her life is drama. Well, drama is hardly the word to convey the risks that she took on. And I'm quoting from what he said, with realism and shrewd understanding of her fellows as an animating force. No one could have said it better than he. Ironically, or maybe in ignorance of the fact that Greene was passing as white. She knew better than any others about the, quote, realism and understanding of her fellows as an animating force. The realism meant that she understood the dangers of making an extraordinary career in a country where white majorities were dedicated to incapacitating and blocking the aspirations and capacities of black people. She pulled it off with courage, skill, and unbelievable good luck. Imagine working in the restricted, rich, upper-class international world of manuscripts, books, and art under the tutelage of the most famous banker and collector in the United States. She traveled to Europe frequently. In New York, she befriended and moved easily with avant-garde artists in Greenwich Village, but not those who were part of the Harlem Renaissance. And she moved within truly rich circles of collectors, not the people pictured in the imagined literary poster world. It's an extraordinary story, but with tragic aspects as well. Belle de Costa Greene was extremely close to her nephew, Bobby McKinley Leveridge. She was his guardian. He went to Harvard and then into the Air Force. In a publication of St. Paul's, where he went, his death is listed as dying in action in 1943. But this was not true. Bobby, who had gone to Harvard and was in the Air Force early in the 1940s, believed that he was white and always passed as white. He was engaged to marry Nina Taylor, a white woman, who told him that he was not white, which she discovered probably because her father investigated. So she wrote Bobby that they could not have children for fear they would be black. Quote, "I'm not going to pretend that society means nothing to me. It does. I should dislike being cut by many of rather large acquaintance, as well as by those whom I had thought to be friends. I should like my children to be able to go to the schools and belong to the clubs that they might normally expect to. Any mother would. You more or less belong with one group, and I with another." She added the following. I shall quote a piece of conversation which I think you will agree with would be very unfortunate for any child of ours to overhear. She quotes, "I consider it an insult to be invited to meet Morgan's meager whore." Having to say that to little Mac? Yes, that is your Aunt Belle, dear. Bobby committed suicide several months after reading the letter, and Belle de Costa Greene was devastated by his death. It's not clear that she read the letter, but the letter tells the story. She retired as director of the Morgan Library in 1948 in poor health and died 2 years later. So now, 26 years after her death, the Morgan has produced an extensive exhibition of her accomplishments and extraordinary life. It's a story of an America that provided amazing and deeply unusual opportunities for a vivacious and bold woman, long before the women's movement in post-World War II America. It is also the story of an America that had devised and sustained systems, social, cultural, economic systems of vicious racism. Before the second coming of the Trump administration in November 2024. But Morgan must have believed that the time had come for full recognition of the extraordinary achievements of Belle de Costa Greene. Before the election, there was a sense of coming to terms with our painful past of exclusion and racism. Now we are on painful retreat. In her own way, she transcended the boundaries of prejudice, which we have to do today. I'd like to share a few thoughts, or afterthoughts, in this talk, meaning thoughts that came after I thought I'd finished writing it. So last week at the College of Atlantic, Zakir Tamiz and Dorothy Wickenden, a wonderful writer and former New York editor, spoke about outstanding abolitionists. Tamiz had produced a book about Senator Sumner, the great abolitionist who was brutally injured on the floor of the Senate by a Southern man who raged against Sumner's attacks on slavery and the slave states. Wickenden wrote a terrific book, The Agitators, about three extraordinary women, Harriet Tubman, Martha Coffin Wright, and Frances A. Seward, who fought against slavery and for the right of women to vote. These are histories of courage, active public, in-your-face courage. And I believe both books are in the Southwest Harbor Library. So I began to wonder what constitutes courage. And I'm not sure today, as we are severely tested. But I do know that the battles over race and decency and power fought in the 19th century, and the ones that Belle de Costa Greene was forced, which she was forced to live through, are ones that we must continue to fight today. In the present context, it takes courage to stand firm in the fires of fear and hatred concerning race and women that permeate our society. Thank you.
We'll happily take questions, and I would love it if people who have questions would accept my coming with the microphone so everyone can hear you.
But you don't have to have questions.
You don't? Yes, you do.
Sorry.
Could you talk a little bit about how she acquired the knowledge that she had to have to accomplish as much as she did?
Well, I think she was just an avid learner.
She was self-taught.
She was self-taught. Well, except no. She went to Princeton. She went to Amherst for a summer program, and she went to a seminary. And she was focused. Remember, women could only go into librarian work. So there was a lot for her to learn in institutions that were sharing that knowledge. So she could imagine a career with librarians. She just took it in. What I think is even more extraordinary than the knowledge of the specific expertise that she developed, which was extraordinary. She apparently would go into to galleries, into even book collectors, to go to auctions. And she was devilishly good. She had such confidence that she knew the subjects, that she was an expertise, and that she could outwit anybody. And she did. It was a man's world. I mean, there were women who collected, but it was a man's world to trade and negotiate and essentially to use money and power in order to collect. It was like yachts. I mean, they had yachts also, but the collections were extremely important as a sign of status and of of being erudite, knowledgeable. You wanted to hold these, amass the collections. And she was so skillful, and I mean, she was just aggressively, not obnoxiously, but aggressively strong in what she knew and what she wanted and she had unlimited funds. I mean, it was very nice to go to an auction with a check from, or a promise from J.P. Morgan. Couldn't do much better than that. Pam. Yeah. Oh, you.
It's me.
You. What? Man behind.
In terms of race, actually, it was interesting. It seemed as though actually during her tenure, there was no kind of discussion of race, actually, until now. But it's interesting, I read a book called The Proud Possessors,
Yeah.
and it's about the building of all the
collections,
collections, the
yeah, yeah.
Whitneys, and in there she's mentioned, but it says nothing about her race or anything. But it does say that she was a pretty shrewd negotiator, and she uncovered frauds, that the dealers wanted to sell them. In Morgan, actually, which is interesting. So it's interesting how in that whole period, she wasn't really exposed in any way.
You know, I met the other day at COA Charles Peirce, and he was a director of the Morgan for several years. And I spoke with his wife and said I was going to speak here. And his wife said, nobody knew. There were rumors, but nobody knew. And it's quite extraordinary that somehow there wasn't a connection made between her father, Greenhill, and her. But they kept it. She appeared to the world as somebody with a kind of, she was white, but kind of dark hue. And because of the name, Belle de Costa Greene, she said she had Portuguese background, and there was a bit of that, but the stakes for her were incredible. And the letter from the woman who was going to marry her nephew, the slur, it's just awful. It was a vicious world, and 1% did it. There was no way around it. Yeah.
One question
Oh, okay.
here. You
Come.
got another one, and we'll take a question.
What was her relationship to J.P. Morgan? Did she need to get his authority before she made a purchase? Did she have any kind of direction from him as to what she was going to acquire and how much she should pay for it?
It was unlimited. He had complete confidence in her. I'm sure there must have been some very big things, and she would talk about it, and she would say, I'm going to this auction, I'm going to this collector, I'm going to London to look at the libraries of the failing British aristocrats, and this is what I'm going to pick up. I want to pick up, but I think it was unlimited. And so there have been, there's a novel about her, and then there are two biographies of hers about her. And all of this is very important and gives you a great deal of the history and the sense of how she conducted herself. She was confident. She was confident. She was confident in her head, and one doesn't read about her making mistakes. In fact, she would discover mistakes that other collectors had made and say that some of the purchases were in fact bogus. She had a particular specialties, which was manuscripts, medieval manuscripts. She had a small art collection herself. He paid her very well for this. For what the work she did, she lived very well. She had a terrific full life. And it wasn't just art. She had fun. I mean, she loved going to the opera. I mean, you can see from, the way she wrote to Stieglitz, and she was a bon vivant, and she was beautiful, and she loved dressing up elegantly. She had it all, but underneath was this, and it was courage. I mean, she controlled her fear. Was she conscious of it? Maybe. It's not recorded. But her nephew's death, his suicide, and the cruelty. At first they said that that he died in service. He was in the Air Force, but it was a suicide, and he just couldn't survive. She did. Amazing story.
So picking up on the relationship with J.P. Morgan, clearly he was her employer. Clearly he had a lot of confidence because he gave her a near blank check. But is there anything, there are letters or anything between them that suggest any kind of what their relationship was like almost at a personal level?
As close as we can get is this comment, we tried. I don't, was she being funny? I don't know. She may have gained from the rumor that he had mistresses. But she was not, she was emotionally involved with Bernard Berenson for many, many years. And that was a relationship of great promise and great joy to her, and then great sorrow. It floundered. But that was a real affair. The Morgan one was in other people's heads, I would think. Because I'm not an expert on her. I've just read the catalog and I've read, some of the biographies and all. But she was so courageous. It was such a story. And I do wonder if the Morgan would show the exhibition, would plan to show that exhibition now. I mean, they could show it now, but would they plan it for now? Because they did it in a period of a kind of consensus that this story needed to be told because it is so tragic in some respects and so extraordinary in others. And what are we afraid of? I mean, that's it. Now it's different. Yes.
Knowing all of her accomplishments, which were immense, the price she paid for that was she's, well, two things. One, I was looking at photographs of her, and except for the one that was like the poster, I would never think she was white. I would not. I could immediately see, even a young picture of her with a photograph, she would not be white in my world. Okay, so for her to be able to do, I'm looking at that picture, she's not white. No way, no how.
But everybody else thought she was.
Right. So the price she paid, I'm asking, I guess, partly is she was estranged from her father. Did she see any of her family?
Yeah, she was very close to her mother, and she was very close to the nephew. She was his mentor. So yes, yeah, she did not abandon her family. And the mother passed for white. They all. And Bobby passed for white. He went to Exeter, and then he went to Harvard. And there were many who passed.
Do you think she didn't marry because of the fear of children who might not be accepted?
I think she was too busy having a good time. There, here, yeah.
In 1992, there was an extremely powerful book published that was a biography of J.P. Morgan himself. And I had had to know this because I was the
Publisher,
the
the writer.
no, it's funnier than that. I was the global sales director of AT&T to JP Morgan Bank. And so I was reading that in the Loire Valley before I took the job, after having been in Paris for a couple of days. And as a student of all things psychology, neurology, sociology, and global culture, I believe from reading that, what I recall from reading his biography, because they talk about how he met her, how he found her. J.P. Morgan was a very gifted person, but he was not attractive. He was not charming, he was gruff. I can't remember if he's Jewish or not.
Oh, no.
But hold on, just hold on a second, because many of us who don't think we're Jewish actually have a Jewish great-grandparent. So, J.P. Morgan was enough of a man of the world, you see, to recognize and want to be and surround himself with that which he was not. He was not a ladies' man. Yes, he had a family. He actually bent over backwards to give his wife and his children great homes, etc. But he had great intellect. And people were afraid of him. And so in America, you can get away with many things, including being queer, including being this and that and the other thing, even being Jewish.
He wasn't.
Hold on. But he was the banker. But he was the banker, you see. He was the other banker who wasn't the Rothschilds. He was the banker who came up and did good and got big and got rich. And as such, once he said, you know things I don't know. You are so smart. You are so talented. I don't care that you're black. Whatever story we have to concoct so that you can be successful, so that I have a legacy, so that I am as remembered as that other guy, and that other guy over there, and the other guy down the street. And that's how she, like all good women, many good women, including myself, except for I had to get out of that milieu because I happened to be queer as well. So it didn't work out for me. I didn't have a patient. I'm my own patient. And for her, it's remarkable really that once he said, hey, you are so gifted. I love you. And he did. If you read that biography, he loved her to pieces. She probably loved him too, but like she said, we tried, but I couldn't be your person because you're unattractive, you're not charming, and you're not as smart as I am.
And you're not Jewish.
And you're not Jewish, and you're not even sexy.
You want somebody Jewish.
And the thing is, one of his things was very much about his absence of beauty, that he was not beautiful. He got uglier as he grew older. I'm not kidding you, that this is in the biography. And he was ashamed of that. And so she became, in a way, an alter ego to the world for him.
That's great. Thank you. Excellent. Terrific. I mean, we have enough trouble about bankers with Rothschild and all the others. So if you're going to say that Morgan was Jewish,
Well, maybe his wife was.
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Did she engage in any philanthropy during her career?
Did she?
Yes.
Limited. Limited. Yeah.
Leonard Berrington is famous for, as procurer for Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. Did he procure also for the Morgan Museum?
I think she had dealings with him, yeah.
I went to the exhibit at the Morgan.
Oh, yeah.
And the person who gave the tour was very opinionated and certainly did not like certain books like the biography that was just mentioned. Did not believe the stories in them. But also mentioned that in terms of philanthropy, J.P. Morgan was very clearly, all his life, using his wealth to build these collections with the intent, always, of making them available to the public. That was a lifelong of philanthropy that she was then the major agent for on this one part. But he also collected artworks and sculptures and donated all of those to the Metropolitan Museum. So he was certainly a terrific philanthropist, and I think she could have seen her career as philanthropy all by itself as well. Because she enabled that collection, because it was always known it was going to be the Morgan Library open to the public.
No. But I think she was deeply interested in books and manuscripts. I mean, she had to, it came together perfectly, because in a sense the museum is a kind of philanthropy, because it's for the public.
Yeah.
But her focus was really her obsession. I mean, the thing that she spent lots of time doing was, first as librarian, cataloging what he had bought, and then systematizing and expanding. She made lots of exhibits, and as you know from the exhibition, she made lots of acquisitions.
One or two more questions?
Yeah. No, I was very interested in this history of passing, and I think it's all the more interesting because it's exemplary of something that we're discovering, like in the case of the new Pope, where there's the whole history of his own family having passed. He comes from an African-American background, from New Orleans, from a Creole background. And so it is, I think that there is a lot more, I very much enjoyed the talk, I think there's a lot more to this history, sort of as a kind of subtext actually to America in a much greater sense than we're really aware of or have actually been willing to recognize today.
Absolutely. There's
What do I say? Well, thank you very much. I think you've left us with wanting to learn more. And so it kind of behooves all of us. I didn't know about that as a collection, and I would be interested in reading that. Yeah. So thank you for spurring us on to learn more as well.
Thank you for coming.